Guess what? I wasn't going to see the movie anyway.
There's not much time. You got to be miles away from here before dawn. Where is she? Fear is your enemy.
I'm gonna be free or die.
Like I said, I wasn't going to see the movie anyway. And guess what? I'm not boycotting the movie. I just wasn't going to see another slave movie. I don't care who was in it, and I don't care what it was about.
Oh, my. You know, I should hang you for being able to read and write, but this is one heck of a what'd you call it? A script?
Yes, sir, Master Colonel. You got it. It's a script. First one ever made. Right here.
Well, if you're selling, I am buying. Oh, you are gonna be a very rich man, son.
Isn't it ironic that Hollywood always wants to greenlight movies just about slavery? Like everybody wants to know about slavery. But guess what? Most of these movies are terrible. Do you know why most of these black films are terrible? They're terrible because they have to get approved by white Hollywood. So white Hollywood has to accept the black film, meaning it's not really a black film. It's a film done by black people, approved by white Hollywood.
I think about this every time I see a slave movie being advertised to black people. The constant replaying of extraordinary experiences that undoubtedly affect African Americans much more visceral because we are descendants of these enslaved people. And this is showing the actual trauma and the retelling of the experiences of our ancestors. It's reliving the mental oppression, the physical abuse, the sexual trauma that our great-grandparents and even our grandparents experience. And it triggers physiological and emotional states that honestly handicaps us.
You have made it 100 miles to freedom all by yourself. Would you like to pick a new name to mark your freedom?
Harriet Tubman.
Like all the rest of these slavery movies, they make them real digestible. They make slavery movies so that white people aren't really offended and black people are entertained. That's the average slave movie.
What's your name?
Toby.
Hi. Say it again. Say it louder so they all can hear you. What's your name?
Toby. My name is Toby.
Hi. That's a good nigger. Cut him down.
I feel like this film is for a 12-year-old.
It's for families. We wanted people to come and see it because I think there are many films that focus on the brutality of slavery, but it means that your kids can't come with you to see these stories. And the fact is, because it's not taught often, you can bring your 13-year-old, you can bring your 12-year-old to come and see this, and they won't be traumatized by it.
And don't get it twisted, you feel the pain.
Yes.
And you see it.
Oh, I get it. So you want people to see the slave owner as the least abusive person in a slave film while making a black man the most vicious. But I thought you said they didn't want them to be traumatized by the brutality of the film.
You can bring your 12-year-old to come and see this, and they won't be traumatized by it.
And
okay, so if they're going to be traumatized, don't let it be by a white man. Let it be by a black man.
How is your goal to have a movie about slavery and it be kid-friendly? That is ridiculous. That's like having a Holocaust-themed amusement park. It is insane. You want a kid-friendly movie about the atrocities of slavery. Just think about that.
if I'm free, my family should be too. And I'm going back.
Do you know what would happen if you got caught?
I made it this far on my own, so don't you tell me what I can't do.
But like I said, I wasn't going to see the movie anyway.
I said a couple weeks ago on Twitter that I didn't want to see any more slave movies. It's not just the fact that because of out of the extensive history that the original people have, slavery always seems to be the focus. It seems like there's such a blatant monetization of black suffering. Apparently killing and brutalizing black people is a very lucrative industry. That's not even the most bothersome thing to me. What bothers me the most is the consistent rewriting of our historical narratives.
I knew this Harriet Tubman film would be just like Birth of a Nation, a watered down tale of heroism.
So when we look at this film, it's supposed to be the story of Harriet Tubman being the black woman who essentially led so many slaves through the Underground Railroad into freedom. It's her narrative and biopic supposedly, but when we start breaking down the plot, they took so many liberties that they recreated her story to have characters not only that didn't exist, but possibly have no historical anchoring.
All this movie is propaganda. How do you have a movie about slavery and people are leaving the theater cheering? How? How we have movies about slavery and people are able to even watch it? You know how? Because they give us the watered down version. We're not taking straight shots of slavery. Not no straight shot of Patron. It's that watered down cheap alcohol. That's all it is.
Dad, there's something I should tell you about Thelma.
Having sold his script, Catcher promptly betrayed Thelma's rebellion.
Oh, man, he sold the crew out for a script? Yo, that's a bitch-ass nigga.
Oh, my goodness. And when were they planning such treachery?
A week from now? 3 o'clock.
You see, the problem is they sold this film to us as a biopic. What you're saying is this film is historically accurate to Harriet Tubman's life. I'm under the impression that Harriet Tubman's life was so dynamic and so awesome that you actually don't have to add or take away anything. You can just leave it as it is and let the story tell itself. But no, Hollywood would not approve that. So you have to add some things to the movie to make it acceptable for white Hollywood.
When trouble comes, you'll be ready.
Harriet, welcome to the Underground Railroad.
Find this thief and burn her at the stake.
God don't mean people to own people. Ready?
I can feel you all getting upset right now, and I'm going to get to y'all in just a second. They actually made up a character and named him Bigger Long. Think about that. During slavery time, there was a black bounty hunter named Bigger Long getting paid by white people to carry around a gun and captured runaway slaves. Is that not hilarious? His name is Bigger Long. That is a literal porn star name. Bigger Long? Are we serious?
Last night, 5 of my best slaves went off. And 3 bucks and a female were full. An old page, $300, their return. Alive, and I'm home. I want the girl to see them too. I don't want no harm to come to her by nobody's hands but mine.
I've been too honored, but it's been the rest.
$200. That's enough of you bastard like you gonna buy with $200.
Enough white holes will last me till then.
The first thing that we see is a black male slave catcher named Bigger Long. This Bigger Long is played by Omar Dorsey from Decatur, Georgia. And essentially the character comes out of a creation of a black male slave catcher that never chased Harriet Tubman in any historical records. In fact, going even further, according to books that have been put out by everyone from the Harvard Press and beyond, there might not have been many, if any at all, black male slave catchers in the historical archives. Fundamentally, there was so much fear amongst whites of black uprising, the likelihood that they would give a black male a gun to go out and actually catch other black men without the fear that they would then turn on them is very, very, very low. And I don't understand how we got here where we don't understand when you make a biopic, it has to have anchoring.
And they literally made Bigger Long her greatest adversary in the film. Not slavery, not white oppression, but Bigger Long.
Get it? So you want people to see the slave owner as the least abusive person in a slave film while making a black man the most vicious. But I thought you said they didn't want them to be traumatized by the brutality of the film.
You can bring your 12-year-old to come and see this, and they won't be traumatized by it. And
okay, so if they're going to be traumatized, don't let it be by a white man. Let it be by a black man who beats a black woman to death. And they were both fictional characters. Their story is made up.
Exist. Marie, Harriet's friend, made up. Get this, the main villain in this story, the black male bounty hunter that makes it his life's mission to capture Harriet, is made up. I'm sorry, but this blatant agenda to vilify black men, to make out black men to be these violent thugs or these sexual deviants has to be called out. How you gonna make up a villain and make him be a black bounty hunter at that, which was incredibly rare?
A black bounty hunter in the 1800s, running around with a pistol, capturing slaves.
He gonna stay in the big house?
Stephen, he's a slaver. It's different.
In the big house?
Well, you got a problem with that?
Oh, no, I ain't got no problem with it. If you ain't got no problem with burning the bed, the sheets, the pillowcases, everything else when this black-ass motherfucker's gone.
And he was the best slave catcher in the South.
Long is portrayed as just this obtuse figure that never existed. From what I've heard about the plot, essentially he says the reasoning to do this is to catch white whores or something of the sort is the reason he's using this money. None of it is respectful to Harriet's legacy, and it's definitely not respectful to black men. I think this movie is very dangerous in how it mischaracterized the narrative of slavery and the role of black men, let alone also white men and white women in context of this. By many accounts, there were far more white women that were slave catchers than ever existed with black men. Now, white males were the primary slave catchers.
Are we really going to believe that Bigger Long, a slave catcher with a porn star name, was running around capturing runaway slaves and his goal was to sleep with white women? Are we really supporting this? Are we really supporting a man hell-bent on capturing slaves, specifically women, and his goal being to sleep with white women? Let me correct myself. Capturing black women and his goal is to sleep with white women. He literally beats Janelle Monáe's character to death. Do we want to believe this? He literally beats her to death and he wants to kill Harriet. Are we really going with this? Honestly, are we really riding with this? Bigger Long?
You better be as good as they say.
In the film, Harriet Tubman's biggest threat is a black man bounty hunter named Bigger Long who wants her dead.
We have a long history of black men being demonized and being made into brutes in film. We go back to Birth of the Nation that led to the rise of the Ku Klux Klan that was anchored in a false narrative of white men playing blackface black men that were savages and running wild and raping white women. How far off is Bigger Long from that portrayal of black men? Not far at all to me. At one point, as I understand it, Bigger Long actually steps on and kills Janelle Monáe's character, a black woman. He basically is running around chasing black women as a brute and a savage, and he never existed. Not just he never existed, there was no black male that ever chased Harriet Tubman by any record. Not just no black male ever chased Harriet Tubman by any record, there's hardly any record of black men chasing anyone as a slave catcher in the South.
And he wants to sleep with white women.
I myself am boycotting the Harriet film for a number of reasons, primarily because of the Civil Rights Act of 1866 will be heard in the Supreme Court in less than 2 weeks, November 13th, and essentially Comcast owns NBC Universal. And Focus Features is then owned by NBC Universal. So in effect, Comcast owns the company that put this movie out. So while in 2 weeks they attacked the civil rights that Harriet Tubman, along with Frederick Douglass and so many others, pushed for with the Civil Rights Act of 1866, they put out Harriet's biopic, and then in addition, they interjected with so much that is not written into any of the history books that it isn't Harriet Tubman's biopic at all.
So he wants to kill black women, but he wants to sleep with white women. Let me correct that. He kills black women, he captures black women, but he wants to sleep with white women during slavery. What are we doing? Are we serious?
They had a lady, there's a blue check mark Twitter lady, white lady, said she went seen the Harriet movie. And she said her child came out scared of the black bounty hunter named Bigger Long. And I could just make a whole video about them calling him Bigger Long, really. Well, anyway, they're more scared of Bigger Long than the white slave master.
I've been too honored. But it's been the rest.
$200. It's enough of you bastard like you gonna buy $200.
Enough white hoes will last me till that.
Now, many of you all have argued with me about Harriet Tubman not being saved by her white slave master. But I'm going to show this clip several times in this video to let you all know that the white slave master saved her from Bigger Long.
You gonna die, bitch.
My advice is,
And when she had a chance to kill the white slave master, the one that's enslaved her family and her people, she decides to give him a lecture. Are we serious? Are we really going with this?
Bitch.
my advice is,
You gonna die, bitch.
my advice is,
Are we really going with this? I mean, are we really going with this movie? Bigger Long? Are we serious?
You gonna die, bitch.
my advice is,
And you all tried to use the cruelty of white people towards slaves as a gift for Harriet. Harriet got knocked up and got her skull fractured. She was falling asleep, narcoleptic. At any moment, she would fall out. And you all try to make it a gift like what happened to her wasn't terrible and tragic. What happened to her made her mission as a sojourner, as Moses, even harder. Because she was narcoleptic, it made it even harder. Y'all try to make it a gift to wash away white guilt. No. They tried to kill her. She was getting tortured from the age of 5 on up. Are y'all serious?
Why you let me live?
We saw all of these academics, we saw all of these people, we saw all of these black thought leaders and the people who normally lead black politics come out and say, well, you got to go see it. It's not so bad. It's all kind of, well, I just go see it first. And that's and the reason I point that out is because I think that was a talking point. Because everybody has said that. Well, just go see it first. Meaning that they're trying to get us out and get the box office up, or we're trying to get us out and get the box office up for first weekend. for opening weekend, without regard for what was in the movie, what happened in the movie in terms of a white savior and a black villain, without regard for any of that. So I think what that shows us is, first, there are a lot of people who are not built to be leaders in the leadership space. And the second thing is we have to really watch the coordination here, because there's something else going on in terms of how people navigate in white spaces.
You lying black bitch! That wasn't a week!
Forward! Come on!
Shoot him! Shoot him! No, massa! No!
That bitch can fight.
Oh my God! Oh God! Stand still, bitch!
You gonna die, bitch. Alive, I said.
Now, when we get to black films, films about slavery, and slavery lasted over 400 years, they make sure you are comfortable watching films about slavery. They fantasize slavery. They water down slavery. They make slavery not seem so bad.
You gonna die, bitch. Alive, I said.
Dear black people, specifically black women, listen, I cannot like a film and still support black people. I can be against the film and still support black people. I can have an objective opinion about a fictitious film and still love and support black people. Dear black women, I cannot like a film by a black female director and by a black female lead actress and still love and respect black women. I cannot like a film where the director consults with this white lady that's supposed to be an expert on Harriet Tubman. I cannot like the film for my own reasons. Or I can just not like the film because I think it's terrible. I can think it's bad acting. I can think it's a poor script. I can think it's weak writing. I can have an objective opinion about the movie and still love and respect black women.
I made it this far on my own, so don't you tell me what I can't do.
I need you all to stop doing that. Stop saying that because a man doesn't support something that a black woman is doing, that he's against all black women. No, I just don't like the film. Don't do that. Don't take away someone's credibility because you think this movie is a crowning achievement for black women when I don't think it is. It's my opinion about the film, not about black women, not about black people.
Wait. He meant to shoot Thelma but shot Massa instead? Now that's an ending.
My ending was better.
That ain't good white history.
But the script.
That's colored, man. You talking.
That moment, Catcher decided it was best to just go with the winning team.
Die, Cracker! Die? Yeah! Take that, Massa!
Now we stand at a different point where this is a disrespectful film to Harriet's legacy, to black men at large, and a dangerous film in the sense that as it's told, it undermines the very narrative and story of how black men actually were victims during the slavery period, not perpetrators of its violence. I continue on by looking at a history that we can go from Birth of a Nation and all the way into King Kong. King Kong's imagery comes out of the brutish idea, and people will say, well, that's a big ape. No, it was actually projections of the idea of a brutish black man that was actually chasing after white women, and this white male comes in and saves the day. And we see that in the Harriet film.
You gonna die, bitch. enough white holes and last me till then.
Do you all think Hollywood would make a film about the Holocaust and there was a Jewish person in the film killing Jews and taking Jews to the Nazis? Do you think they would make up a character, a fictitious character that never existed, a fictitious Jewish character that was killing Jewish people and then taking the other Jewish people to the Nazis? Of course not. Of course they would not make a film like that. When Hollywood makes films about the Holocaust, they make sure you know it was terrible. This film had the basic elements. Let's make black women the heroes. Let's make black men the antagonists. And let's make white men the savior. That was a typical formula that most of these films follow. So don't come back and tell me that it's entertainment and not educational because you all sold the film as a biopic. Don't cower out now and tell me it's entertainment and not educational when it's a movie about Harriet Tubman, when you literally have her whole life story already told. And this is not an attack on black women. And I resent anybody saying it because it's an uncharactered statement to make. This is not an attack on black women. This is about people not liking a film for good reasons.
This is a very big problem when you're trying to make a larger discussion of a black agenda and reparations that are owed to black folks because of mistreatment by the government and white America, because it creates a ahistorical idea that black men, that black people, that black families were enforcers of a white oppression when they weren't part of that institution in that way. This film sits in a problematic position while we're in the middle of demanding a reparations claim from the U.S. government, while we're in the middle of demanding that the U.S. government and Comcast stand down against our Civil Rights Act.
And again, I don't care to see any more movies about slavery. There's a lot more to black Americans, indigenous Americans, ancient Americans. There's much more to us than just slavery.
You want to beat up on the slaves, huh? Well, take this to your ass, motherfucker! Ha!
Oh, Catcher.
That's how I do it, baby. That's how I do it.
And so was born the legend of Catcher Freeman. Catcher and Thelma married and moved to Canada. His script was never produced. And they all lived, more or less, happily ever after.
Man, that's some old bullshit all my life.
Wait for it. Free blast. Get money. Go.